You're standing at the edge of a rainforest in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's humid, dense, and mostly silent. Somewhere ahead of you, hidden in the undergrowth, is an animal that can bench press over 800 pounds and rip a banana tree out of the ground with its bare hands. You have a spear made of sharpened wood. And here's the strange part. For roughly 200,000 years, humans walked these forests carrying spears, yet gorillas were almost never the target. That should surprise you, because early humans hunted almost everything else that moved. By 11,000 BCE, human hunters in North America were taking down woolly mammoths weighing up to 6 tons, using nothing but stone-tipped spears and coordinated group tactics. At a site called Leaner Ranch in Arizona, archaeologists found the remains of 13 mammoths, all killed by Clovis hunters around 10,900 BCE. Cave bears weighing whopping 500 pounds. Aurochs, the wild ancestor of cattle, stands 6 feet tall at the shoulder. Humans hunted them all, but gorillas, an animal a fraction of a mammoth size, living in the same forests as some of the earliest human populations on Earth, were, for most of history, left almost entirely alone. This isn't a story about fear. It's a story about a calculation our ancestors made, over and over, for thousands of generations, one written into the risk-reward math of survival itself. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why a rule that once kept ancient hunters alive is still shaping the way your brain reacts to danger today. If gorillas were truly too dangerous to hunt, the answer shouldn't exist only in humans. It should exist in our closest relatives too. In 1960, a 26-year-old researcher named Jane Goodall arrived at Gombe Stream in Tanzania to study chimpanzees. What she found revealed something unsettling. Humans weren't the only primates that hunted in organized, coordinated groups. But even these highly capable predators drew a line at one particular animal. And that's when the pattern became impossible to ignore. What Goodall documented was this. Chimpanzees, humans' closest living relative, hunt regularly. At Gombe, she recorded chimps stalking and killing red colobus monkeys in coordinated groups, sometimes taking down over 20 in a single hunting season. Chimps plan, they ambush, they share the kill by rank. In every meaningful sense, they are predators. For decades, researchers believed chimpanzees simply never touched gorillas at all. Then, in 2019, researchers in Gabon documented something no one had ever seen before. Chimpanzees launching coordinated attacks on gorilla groups. At Loango National Park, chimpanzee coalitions of up to 27 individuals surrounded and attacked gorilla families in 2 separate encounters. And here's the detail that matters. In both encounters, the adult silverbacks fought back and got away. It was only the infants, too small and slow to escape, that the chimpanzees managed to kill. Even in the one confirmed case of chimps turning on gorillas, the math held. A fully grown silverback is strong enough to bend metal bars, snap thick branches, and drag hundreds of pounds through dense forest. An adult male chimpanzee weighs around 130 pounds. A silverback gorilla can weigh over 400 pounds and generate a bite force estimated at 1,300 pounds per square inch, more than double that of a lion. Even 27 chimpanzees working together couldn't bring one down. The math simply doesn't work. It never has. That same math followed humans out of the forest. Every hunt forced early hominins to solve the same problem, over and over. How many calories was an animal worth? And how likely was it to kill you first? In 1994, primatologist Richard Wrangham, working out of Harvard, gave that calculation a name: optimal foraging theory. The idea that early humans treated every potential kill as an energy transaction, weighing calories gained against the real risk of injury or death. A juvenile antelope was a good trade. An adult gorilla, capable of killing a person with a single strike, was a catastrophic one. The historical record backs this up in unsettling detail. Among the Baka and Mbuti peoples of the Congo Basin, hunter-gatherer groups with cultural hunting practices believed to stretch back thousands of years. Ethnographic records collected throughout the 20th century show almost no tradition of gorilla hunting. Elephants, yes, using pit traps and poison spears passed down for generations. Forest buffalo, yes. Gorillas were treated differently, approached with caution, sometimes reverence, rarely as prey. That's not the whole story, though. And the answer to why humans left gorillas alone for so long wasn't hidden in the animals themselves. It was hidden in the weapon humans carried, because in 1902, a German officer named Robert von Behring shot and killed 2 mountain gorillas on the slopes of the Virunga volcanoes. The first gorillas ever documented by a European, and the moment the species was formally identified by science. For thousands of generations, humans and gorillas had shared the same forests. In a single moment, that pattern changed. It wasn't a hunter with a spear who finally broke the ancient pattern. It was a man with a rifle, closing an evolutionary gap that had held for 200,000 years in less than a second. And that single shot exposes exactly what had been protecting gorillas all along. Because it wasn't respect, and it wasn't rarity, it was distance. The distance that had protected gorillas for 200,000 years was never physical. It was the distance between a human hand and a gorilla's chest. A spear requires you to close that gap, to stand within arm's reach of something that can kill you in under a second. A rifle erases the gap entirely. Von Behring fired from roughly 100 feet away. No spear-wielding hunter in the Congo Basin had ever needed to make that calculation, because the technology to make it a safe bet didn't exist yet. Within decades, the numbers turned catastrophic. By the 1980s, mountain gorilla populations had collapsed to fewer than 254 individuals, according to census work led by primatologist Diane Fossey, who spent 18 years studying the species in Rwanda before her death in 1985. Poaching, much of it now enabled by firearms rather than traditional weapons, had done in a single century what 200,000 years of human coexistence had not. But here's the detail that should sit with you longer than the rest. The instinct that kept ancient hunters at bay. The one that made a mammoth a reasonable target and a gorilla an unreasonable one, didn't disappear when the technology changed. In 2016, researchers at Emory University, led by primatologist Frans de Waal, documented human subjects showing measurable physiological stress responses, elevated heart rate, skin conductance, simply from close-range eye contact with a gorilla behind reinforced glass, zero physical risk, full biological alarm. The 200,000-year-old calculation was still running, quietly, underneath a species that no longer needed it. Long before cities, roads, or written language, our ancestors learned a rule that kept them alive. Some things simply aren't worth getting close to. You don't think of yourself as someone who calculates risk against an 800-pound animal. You've probably never been within 50 feet of a gorilla in your life, but the part of your brain that made ancient humans lower their spears is the same part that makes you tense, almost imperceptibly, when something powerful and unpredictable gets too close. A stranger's raised voice, a dog you don't know, a stretch of dark water. Thousands of generations later, that rule is still whispering inside your head.